Okay.
Welcome to Heroes of Improv. I am Kira Tyson, an improviser, teacher, and an associate producer of Duluth, the improvised soap opera, which is in full production at the moment. We're in full training and will be airing in May. Today, with me, I have a very special guest. I'd like to welcome one of my favorite personalities, very inspirational to me in the improv world, Inbal Lori.
Hello.
Who is renowned for, her deep, dark, satirical, sometimes politically incorrect, socially controversial improv characters, I would say.
All right.
That are touching and vulnerable and full of human connection. And I think that is definitely what you inspire me the most with. It's crazy.
Nice. Thank you. I didn't know I do all those things, but now I do.
For the people that might not know you, which is strange, I think you've probably been known all over the world. You teach internationally, obviously. You have various shows of your own. One of my favorites being Lorilees. I love it with your duo partner, Lee White, right? And you even have your own YouTube channel. You're also based with the Gorillas, I think, in Berlin.
Exactly.
Then you have the improvisational theater in Berlin there. And you teach corporate improv. My God, the list never ends, right? So you
I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
You're doing it. You're living it.
I'm living it. I am it. I am it.
Exactly. Okay, so one of the things, Inbal, that I would love to talk to you about is that what's been fascinating to me is to experience, especially working with so many people abroad, the US, Canada, even Asia, but especially in the US, that the terminology concerning improv can differ to such a large extent. And I think that my experience is we all mean the same thing, but we call it different things. So now we've started this big conversation and asking all different improvisers from all over the world, what is your definition? And it's not about right and wrong, it's about what do people define under certain terminology? So my question to you is, what would your definition of dramatic, or what is your definition of dramatic improv?
Oh. I don't know if I have a definition for that, really. I would assume that it's a kind of improvisation that is trying to not appeal so much for the comedy, but look at the drama as the basic work assumption. And so try to look for situations that are not as maybe ridiculous or laughable, but more honest and personal and dramatic and touching. This is what I would assume it is. I have to say that I don't think I have done much of that so much. So for me to completely ignore the comedy in the improv is a little bit weird, I would say.
Because you're famous for it, right? Yeah, I mean, this is your thing. You love the comedy aspect.
Exactly. And I think also, I'm not sure like if the improv police is going to bust me for saying that, but I'm not sure if like improv is a branch of comedy because of the rhythm of it, because it's happening in the moment, because there's so many unexpected surprises. These are kind of like the things that would define comedy more and not so much drama. And so I think this might be a little bit confusing to do dramatic improv. It's not that it's not done. I think that you should definitely talk to that Antared theater in Oslo, because they've done Ibsen, or what is it? I think it was Ibsen. And they were like experimenting with it quite a lot to improvise like a whole long form of like one of their national playwriters. And he was super dark, it was super dramatic, there's nothing funny about it. You know, it's like fucking Norway in the winter, nobody's laughing. And a lot of like super problematic topics as well, family issues. So I think that would be like somebody to explore, people who've actually done that and dedicated, and to see what was the comedy component of it. Because I'm sure that due to the fact that we're improvising it, there has to be always a certain amount of like, oh, a surprise, the funny, the comedy, right? And that is also not to say that I don't think that improvisation could be dark comedy or dramatic comedy or satire, comedy. But at the same time, for me, it would always be if there's two families, dramas of comedy, I would go from the comedy and explore the drama and not look at it as something dramatic where comedic things happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The way I would say it is, my sort of definition is of dramatic or narrative improv is, I say it's the drama that happens between the characters that tell the story, not the narrative plot that leads to the drama, right? So it's the onion approach. It's like, I don't want the tidal waves if they're not the reason why the humans are reacting. I want the humans, because of their ups and downs and their emotional, whoever they are, their truth, their authentic selves, to show the vulnerability, and that brings ripples to the outside world. It's not the outside world that's interesting, right? And in
I'm not sure I understand the difference. Like, where does the outside, who dictates the outside world, and who's dictating the character's behavior in it?
Well, very often the narrative, right? It's about narrative is, I think, very important when we're talking about narrative improv or dramatic improv. They're pretty much the same thing, which is what I'm hearing.
You think?
I think
That narrative improv is dramatic improv? Because you could do a long form, which is super funny. I mean, I think 3 for All are doing it for years already, like full length.
Ah, that's interesting you say that. So you're assuming that there's no comedy in it, which I never said. And I don't think that. I think there is comedy and it can be humorous. I think it can be satirical. I think you can go deep. And like, I don't think narrative or dramatic, whatever terminology you use, I don't think it excludes the comedy. But I think one thing it does do, it doesn't go for the short laughs. It's not there to be comedy. It's just a different way of saying, when it happens with truth and authenticity.
Yeah, okay.
Beautiful moment of laughter. And it might be awkward, but it's authentic.
So in that sense, what I would say is, like, I never thought about it as dramatic improv, but what I would say that what I try to teach my students to do, and also is what fun for me, and I think also with Lee, you could see it in our shows online, it's like, we're not looking to crack a joke. We're not looking to be funny or witty. And I think that even if I tried, I'm not sure, but we're trying to, for me, it's like the thing would be the character. So definitely to understand how to react and how to look for the situation through the eyes of the character that I play at that moment. And that would and that way I explore the scene. That way I would discover the scene or what could happen. But the commitment is first of all to the character that leads the way inside and not the jokes. And then the situation is funny. The character is funny because she could be ridiculous, or because she could be weird, or she could be like different thing, she could have different funny objectives or obstacles or whatever. But it's not the jokes, it's following the character, following the story. But at the same time, I do still need to follow the narrative, and I still do need to make a narrative happen, which I think this is the number one challenge of narrative long form. Like when you want to tell a story, because you have to be the writer, and you have to be a decent writer, and you have to be a good actor to then cash the things that you write for yourselves, and vice versa. So this is the challenge, I think, right?
Yeah, and the producer on top of it, right? Because at the same time, you're not just writing your own piece, unless you're doing a solo piece, right? You're playing with other people, and everybody's involved. Everybody should play the same piece. Everybody gets to write the same sort of their part of the plot and add to it all the time. And it's about being as flexible as possible. Really being in the moment, taking the opportunity as it comes, trying to make something with that.
I think what we do, and I think it's a really good way to look at it also when you're doing a long form with a lot of people that has to have a narrative, is like, we mind melt things, that game.
Yeah.
So it's like, the story starts, and then you go like, okay, we have this component, this element. I could see how they would like shift into that story. And then somebody brings this, and you go like, okay, boom, no, wait. We have to mind meld that too, so that changes the shift of where the story might go. Okay, so you're going there, but this happened, and this drops, and you go like, okay, recalculation. I think the idea of agility for our brains as improvisers is the most fun thing, right? Because you always have to go like, okay, what do we have? Where are we going? What are the elements? How do I mind melt them into to go somewhere? And hopefully, if everybody's doing a good job, I want to say a responsible job, because I know it's like completely not the word you would think about, but responsible in terms of like, What am I introducing into the story? And can the story actually handle what I'm introducing? And is it the right thing to introduce right now? Or am I just trying to be funny or smart or whatever? Or because I think it's boring and something needs to happen, so well, whatever. So as long as everybody's being super careful about it in introducing new motives and taking the plot forward, and you just like the job of mind melting it all into one narrative with the group mind is like the biggest fun in the world, isn't it?
Exactly. That's the beauty of it. When you have those moments, and also where you feel supported, right? And you feel like you can support people. Like, what is the scene actually about? Or what is this episode about? What's happening here? If that's the main story and if the plot's already been set up, I just got to support it. I don't need to keep adding, you know? And I think that's probably one of the most difficult things for most improvisers. They always have this need to add, and instead of working with what's already been established.
So a good way of doing that is like, first of all, I think professional improvisers don't do that so much, and I think that's exactly it's one of the differences, because they understand that they don't have to work so hard in terms of narrative. A good exercise for that is ACE, action, color, emotion. When you're supposed to invent a story and your partner from the outside is directing you, when they want to hear about the narrative, they would say action. When they want to hear about details, they would say color. When they want to hear about emotions, they would say emotions. And then you understand that it has to be a 3-layered cake. If it's only narrative, nobody's going to give a shit. Nobody's going to care. They'll just sit at home and read books. Or we don't need information. We don't need you to tell us how something happened. We want to see it. So in order to see it and to be invested and to identify and to care, we need to have details. We need to have emotions. So you really have to take small steps, I think, of the narrative, and much more investment in, not much more, but like to find the right balance between narrative and the amount of details and context and emotion that we need in each one of those narrative steps.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. To me, it does. Okay, that's going to bring me to my next question. It can be a yes or no answer. I have no idea. Have you ever played with a character, developed a character over 24 episodes?
No. Funnily enough, no. Could you believe that? You would expect, no, 24 episodes, no, and 45 minutes each, you say, no? That is a lot. Yep. That's a lot. Very good.
It's a challenge, right? It's a challenge. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that brings me to my last thing that I want to ask you. If there is one tip that you have for Duluth, for the production team, for everybody that's involved in this crazy project and this crazy endeavor, what would your one tip or good luck wish be for the series?
I think it's the idea that 1 minute, because you talked about a 1 minute scenes, right? So the idea that a 1 minute is not such a little bit of time, so you don't need to rush. And again, that if you're bringing one narrative step into that, then you have a lot of time to also find what's the emotion and what's the details of that 1 minute. It's not about bombarding it with information. And the second thing I want to say, which is like, I think the other side, the continuation of what I said now, is like to really enjoy the tension between what you say super directly and what is a subtext, especially because the scenes are shown. So what is the one thing that you really need to endow? Because if you don't endow that, and if you don't say that, this next scene cannot happen and your character can't move on because it's not clear. So in a lot of ways you want clarity, but in other times you want to not say things. You want to have the subtext, you want to leave the suspense, you want to have the tension. So how to flirt with that tension, I think, between those two. That would be super interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would, and that's exactly the challenge, right? That's what we need to buckle up with. That's exactly the challenge. So
and overall, good luck, because that sounds so fascinating. It sounds like it's like you said, an endeavor. Yes.
Well, it is. That's exactly it. It's exciting, and it's a adventure, especially with improv, right? Moving improv to that and pushing it. And in this case, it is really dramatic or narrative improv, because we're doing that. We're allowed to develop. It's special. It's beautiful to see what happens if you develop a story that long, the character that long. Yeah. Let's make her or him just gain everything and fall and try and get it all back. And that's what we love, because it's human. What we like that.
And fuck definitions, like who cares how people call it? Just, fuck that shit. Just have fun. I mean, I understand that sometimes you need to do it because you need to be on the same page, but like the world is like so overloaded with the concepts and like definitions and how do you say it or how we say it, because we don't say it. Fuck that shit. Just have fun.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's about. It's not about right and wrong. It's about, hey, let's all talk the same language or try and talk the same language.
Exactly. So we can do stuff.
Absolutely. Inbal, thank you so much for today. It was so great seeing you. We will be seeing lots of each other in the future.
I hope.
And come and watch Duluth. Push your fingers for us, and
I will.
see you very soon.
See you very soon. Ciao, thank you.